Max Holloway is going to absolutely destroy Conor McGregor, but let's not act like he's not using the Jake Paul method. Because as of recently, Max Holloway has just been a Jake Paul copycat, beating up on fighters way out of their prime, which I don't even know if this Dustin Poirier fight is a good example because Max Holloway looked horrible in this fight. The Korean Zombie fight is another example of Max Holloway beating up on people in their retirement fights. People like to use these fights as an example for Max Holloway's second prime whenever he's just beating up on old men. He was doing this in his first prime as well, beating up on an old Frankie Edgar, beating up on a 1-3 Anthony Pettis, which Anthony Pettis wasn't technically out of his prime, but it was at a terrible spot in his career. 1-3 with his only win being a journeyman Charles Oliveira. Compare this to Jake Paul. This is no different than Jake Paul beating up on an old out-of-prime Tyron Woodley, or an out-of-prime Anderson Silva, or an old out-of-prime Nate Diaz. His fight against Cesar Chavez is also another example of this. And the similarities don't stop there, because just like Jake Paul, as soon as either of them fight anybody that isn't out of their prime, they get completely destroyed. Max Holloway against Charles Oliveira, Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury. While I would argue that Max Holloway is getting beat even more dominantly than Jake Paul is. Another example is Max Holloway against Ilia Topuria. And then of course Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua, which both of these fights were devastating knockouts. Jake Paul kind of avoiding the fight, but so was Max Holloway in his fight against Ilia Topuria. The similarities are just too glaring to not to notice. The similarities like how they both had weight class changes. Jake Paul fighting a heavyweight, and Max Holloway bumping down from lightweight back down to featherweight to fight Ilia Topuria. And while yes, this is going to be very entertaining to watch, you can't ignore how Max Holloway is capitalizing off of these old retiring men. And this fight will be no different.